Hey y'all, Pancake here. It's been a while since we checked into the Epic Universe construction site, and boy oh boy have there been some massive developments. Lands are finalizing their exterior theming, lush green landscapes are being installed, and windmills are catching on fire. Just wait until you see how close this park is to opening. So come along and let's check it all out. Well, if you're new here, welcome to the channel. I promise we will jump right into the Epic Universe construction update here in a bit, but if you are a returning viewer, you're probably wondering where I have been. I know it's been pretty silent here on the channel for the past couple of months now. As some of you may know, I am a video producer for Disney, so this channel is just something I like to do on the side to share my thoughts on all things happening at the theme parks here in Orlando. But over the past about month and a half, I was actually lucky enough to be basically living on board the brand new Disney Cruise Line ship, the Disney Treasure, filming a whole variety of things. I got to set sail on the ship into New York City for the christening, and then again on a non-work preview cruise, and finally 2 media sailings, so needless to say, I got to know the ship very well. And let me just say, y'all, if you have the means and can book a trip on this ship, please do not hesitate. Without a doubt, my favorite experience aboard any Disney cruise ship, or any cruise ship for that matter, just from the fun and energy that's to be had on Deck 3 to the serene and relaxing time all the way on Deck 13, it's just so worth every penny. I just wanted to give you that little update on where my focus has been the past while, but coming into the new year, I am definitely wanting to get back on track with content as we quickly approach the opening of Epic Universe in May. And speaking of Epic, without further ado, let's jump right into this construction update. As with our previous updates of Epic, we will be looking at some incredible photos taken by everyone's favorite aerial photographer, BioReconstruct. So please, before we go any further, go give him a follow on X or Twitter, as well as his YouTube channel where he has been posting some videos as well from these flights he has been on. Without him, we honestly would have been in the dark on all this progress over the years, so thank you, Bio. We appreciate it. So let's start off here with a very wide overall view of the construction plot. Even from this photo alone, we can start to see just how far along they are. There are defined paths throughout the whole park, plenty of trees and grass that's been planted, and it really just feels like we are only about 2 months away from this looking just about complete. Now, obviously that's on the outside. There's probably still a lot of detail work within these buildings that's still got some ways to go, but it is just so exciting to see how this has progressed over the years. Here in the entry, we can see that the gorgeous Kronos icon that you will pass under to enter the park is almost all complete. Something really neat about this structure is that the icons in the middle that represent each of the 5 themed lands will have some movement and will provide this area with some kinetic energy. Not long ago, actually, Adventuring with Annie on YouTube was able to capture some great footage of this in motion, and I mean, come on, it just looks so freaking neat. Once we pass into the Kronos, we can start to see how that green ironwork that is featured in the entrance continues into this area that will be miscellaneous shops, food, and beverage locations. And right now, the statue of the goddess Luna is behind some tarps getting some finishing work. This area is probably going to be the most photographed point of the park because I think the view you're going to have with the statue and then all of the water and greenery of Celestial Park is going to be just so breathtaking. We can also see how they are painting these basins of the creeks where the water will run down to give it more of a color pop. Now, as we venture further into Celestial Park, we come upon the Atlantic, a beautiful waterfront restaurant that I'm sure is going to be the restaurant to eat at in this park. The views alone will be worth the wait to get in, I feel like. And we can see that all the floor-to-ceiling windows look to be in place, and some of the awning structure has actually been installed as well. The neat thing about this restaurant is when you are entering, you are actually higher up than the main dining space. So there will be this kind of grand reveal of the space below you when you enter. In this photo, we can see what looks to be some shell theming elements that will eventually be installed to each top corner apex point. And it appears they actually have a pearl that will sit inside them glowing. These are going to look so great once they are installed. Now, looking towards the giant fountain that will be the centerpiece of the nighttime spectacular, we can see the AstroTurf continuing to be installed on the 5 tiers that descend towards the fountain. Foliage and landscaping continue to be worked on as well, but you can really see how nicely it's filling in with these trees around the area. I always like to think about like 10 to 20 years from now, when these trees mature and get taller, how this space is going to evolve and get even prettier. Constellation Carousel is starting to see its front entrance framework get installed, but the rear main portion of the attraction is getting its final details, and it is just looking so intricate and beautiful. I'm so excited to see the lighting package they have planned for this one because I think it has so much potential to be an icon at night all lit up, and you can actually already see some points of light they have installed running down the arches. We can see that the dome has been topped off with a gorgeous golden Pegasus that will probably also end up acting like a lightning rod during our summer storms. The giant fountain looks to continue to have its water nozzles installed, and I'm kind of curious just how wet people are going to get sitting in this terraced seating area around the fountain. I'm not so sure they thought that over, especially when we have some windy nights here, so we'll have to see. Further back in this photo, you can see the other statue of the Greek god Helios, of course, in front of the Helios Grand Hotel. And in front of that, you can follow the path where water will beautifully cascade down to the main fountain. The sound of water is going to give this area such a peaceful atmosphere. I am so excited to just hang out in this area. Here we can get a much clearer view of Helios. This is a massive, beautiful statue, and I think it's neat that we have a god and a goddess flanking both entrances to the park. I'm excited to hopefully see the scaffolding come down soon for this. Now, last thing I want to look at is one of the dining locations here in Celestial Park, and that's called Meteor Astropub. This is actually a pretty massive building that sits just off from the fountain, and if you look closely, you can actually see the sign to this building in staging, getting ready to be hoisted up and placed on top of the roof where you see those 6 attachment points. And upon closer look, you can actually see that yes, the meteor you see depicted on the sign is in fact a flying burger with all of the toppings trailing behind it. Pure genius. And I bet you what, it's probably going to light up too. Now, this Celestial Park update wouldn't be complete without popping over to Stardust Racers, where there isn't any massive changes, but the lower banked turns that will be in the guest view are getting protective shields installed in order to prohibit any items flying off one train and into the other. So, safety first. All right, now let's hop on over to Super Nintendo World that has seen some huge progression. Starting at the entrance tunnel that will lead you into the land via an escalator, you can see that they have installed some colorful theming elements on top of this portal. And if you look closely, it appears that they may be testing some screen elements inside the tunnel as well. It is rumored for this whole escalator to be encapsulated in screens for that warp effect. Now, taking just a larger overall view of the land, you can really see that they aren't all that far off from the exterior theming work being completely finished. To me, the colors of this land are just what make it so much fun. Obviously, a lot of us are or were fans of the games growing up, and so seeing this recreated in front of us is truly epic. But even for those who don't know anything about Mario, I feel like it's just a beautiful, fantastical world that makes you feel like you are truly somewhere you have never been before. Once up the escalator, we will enter Peach's castle and then into the land for our first view. As you can see, her castle is looking fantastic and getting some final elements installed. The Yoshi Adventure attraction is looking to be just about complete, and the main entrance to the Mario Kart attraction, which is Bowser's Castle, has all of its facade work complete. And now we move on to probably the more anticipated part of Super Nintendo World, which is the Donkey Kong Country area. Here, you can see the entryway into the land where you will pass under these 2 themed pillars. Now, zooming out a little, you can see some of the scenic facade work that is going on to blend the background with the foliage that will be planted in front of it. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of how this is looking, but I think once you are in the land at a normal level, the trees and plants will most likely block a majority of these painted backdrops. The meet and greet location for Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong will be located within this hut that is nearing its completion. Now let's zoom out a little and take a bigger look at this area as a whole. The blue stone walls pop just so much, and with the kinetic energy of the minecarts racing around, this area is going to be such a fun one to hang out in and just take in. Now overall though, the coaster theme elements look very close to being complete. Just like the main area of the land, this area will also have interactive games that will actually trigger physical props to move. We can see one of those elements here in this shot. Those crates you see house an animatronic rhino that will pop out after completing a game. Reversing our view, we can really see the dense forest they have created that will really immerse guests in this area. This basin here is also where guests will skim across water that will then possibly splash up, getting bystanders wet. But now here is a money shot of the main temple that is so close to being complete with its paintwork. You know, in the previous updates, this was very vibrant, but you can see how they've gone through and done a bunch of weathering work, and it really is looking fantastic. Finally, we take a look at probably one of the more thrilling parts of this attraction, where they have made it appear that the track has given out and you will drop down into this cave. This ride looks like it's going to be so much fun, and I cannot wait to give it a spin. Alright, now let's head over to How to Train Your Dragon Isle of Berk. The entry portal to this land is still seeing some work done, but it is really coming together nicely. Now, before we dive into the details of what has progressed in this land, I want to take a look back 3 years ago to what the construction plot looked like. And now, 3 years later, in December of 2024, this is what it looks like. It is just so insanely impressive how this mess of dirt and cement supports turns into this gorgeous, colorful landscape. I never get tired of looking at these kind of before and after photos. It just blows my mind. Entering the land, we can see the lake has been filled and all the themed elements within the lake are complete. This reveal for guests when they walk in is going to be so hard to beat. One of my favorite parts of this land is this village that is crammed on top of this little mountain. It's just the intricacy and detail when you look so close. It's just so well done. I could stare at this for so long, and I probably will once the park opens. From this aerial view, you can kind of get an idea of the paintwork they did to the base of this little lake that greets you when you first enter the land. They painted some areas a little darker to almost give the water a greater sense of depth than it actually has. And another thing I want to point out is this strategic placement of this giant rock in the entrance. This is so the reveal of the view isn't spoiled until you get all the way inside. If it wasn't there, you would see the view from the entrance of the portal, ruining that surprise, and it's just these little details like this that I love to admire. As you cross the bridge into the town, you can see what will be a beautiful fountain with cascading water being installed. On your right will be the entrance to one of the land's 3 attractions, Fire Drill. And of course, the biggest and most prominent thing in the land, the mountain where the land's main dining location, the Mead Hall, is located within. This is just a work of art, and I just can't wait to be standing in front of this, staring up at it, towering over the land. Here's a little bit of a closer look at the 2 statues flanking either side of the giant entrance, and all of the grass on this mountain appears to have been installed. Now, my favorite detail of this mountain though is at the very top. This little house perched all the way up, designed with some forced perspective to give the illusion that this mountain is even taller than it actually is. The giant themed playground within the land has made some incredible progress since our last update. The soft padded floor appears to be installed all throughout, and it seems like all that's left is some awnings that need to be installed on some frames, but this area is looking fantastic. Dragon Racers Rally looks to be getting its queue covering, and then the faux grandstand that sits behind the attraction looks to be about complete. I love the detail of the little dragon heads poking out of their homes, and I'm hoping that these have some movement. The main attraction of this land, Hiccup's Winged Gliders, looks to be complete with plenty of ride testing going on. Bio actually captured some video of this happening, and the one effect I love is when the ride vehicle banks a turn over the water, there are these water jets that give the illusion of the wing dragging through the water and splashing up. I think even though this will be family friendly, it will be a very fun attraction and add a lot to the land as a whole, with it winding in and out of the different areas. The final attraction in the land, Fire Drill, also looks to be complete, minus a seating area nearby that is still deep into construction. The entrance to the stage show of this land appears to be done as well, and this location pictured will be where guests get to come face to face with Toothless in an interactive meet and greet, whether that be a puppet or an animatronic. One last thing before we head out here, I wanted to take a look at this neat area that looks like a hut but is barricaded in. If you look closely, you can see some icicles hanging from the roof. This is going to be home of one of the rare ice-breathing dragons that may give guests a cool way to escape the heat through it breathing a cold mist onto them. This is a neat way to incorporate this into the land and give guests some relief during those summer months here in Florida. Next up, let's take a quick look at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Ministry of Magic. This land to me seems to be the one that is the furthest along when it comes to the exterior theming. All of the cement has been poured, and it appears that all of the theming elements are in place. We can see the replica of the Port Saint-Denis is getting its weathering treatment to make it feel more authentic and like it's been standing for hundreds of years collecting dirt and dust. On the backside, we can see the gorgeous Phoenix statue as you enter Place Cachet. And in this photo, we possibly see some Universal creatives doing a walkthrough to see some of the finished areas. Now, this shot really gives you a sense of just how complete they are though. Very minimal tarps or construction equipment is to be seen, minus maybe a couple lifts. Here is an incredible shot though, showing the finished forced perspective replica of a Catholic church in Paris that will give the illusion that the city goes on for a far distance when you are standing within the land. And something to note too is all this dirt and land you see behind this will eventually be used to expand this land with more attractions and dining. Now we're gonna look at this massive, giant Quidditch shop sign. I am so excited to see this at night. It looks to have plenty of lights that will cast a gorgeous glow on the land, making for some really neat photos. And I love what appears to be a snail hotel. This land is going to be just packed full of so many random details that will lend to hours of hunting around trying to see them all. Now this giant tent will act as the entrance into the stage show within this land called Les Cirques Arcanu. The tent just had its lights installed and you can actually see them turned on in this photo. And in this photo, you can see some other props installed outside of the tent to give it a feeling that this act just showed up in town and unpacked recently. Also in this photo, we can see the ever so delicious butterbeer cart has been placed. Now, I gotta be honest, when I heard the direction they were going for this land was Wizarding Paris, I wasn't too excited. I felt like it didn't lend itself to a very whimsical and unique location that would be much different than going to like a major city like Paris. And I kind of still feel the same way, but I am loving that they are pushing it a little bit and incorporating these fun color palettes and signage seen in this photo to give the land some character. Regardless though, the scale of all of this is very impressive and I have faith it's going to feel like a unique experience. Here we see the completion of the fountain area right outside of what is the entrance to the Ministry of Magic attraction, which will probably be one of the headliner attractions of Epic Universe. Here we can see what will be one of the sweet shops in the land, has all of its window displays installed. And finally, one little look at some of the gorgeous weathered facade work for what will be this land's kind of nocturne alley where the darker arts are practiced. The scenic artists working on this, though, are just so talented. They do such a great job at making this area look so aged and lived in. Last, but certainly not least, we are going to close out this Epic Universe update with probably my most anticipated land, Dark Universe. Just like the Harry Potter land we just looked at, this one is pretty much 97% complete on the exterior. And man, does it just look so gorgeous, y'all. This portal alone is the best in my opinion compared to all of the others. You can see a glowing orb above it, and I imagine inside there will be screens showing pulses of electricity from that coil that sits on top. I just really love how the vines envelop the metal arch, as if this has been there for a long time. You can see on the roof of this entry there are actually several spotlights that have been installed that will probably cast a large beam beckoning guests towards the land. Then, once you enter, you can see some coffins staged that most likely will have some scare actors hiding in it, waiting for the opportune moment to scare some guests. And I love the fact that this land is going to include a lot of roaming inland entertainment that will set the scene and immerse you that much more. I'm curious what this caged area will be. It's kind of hard to make it out in this photo, but my curiosity is definitely piqued. Here you can see a stairway that leads to this lookout point on this building, and I can't help but think this is another one of those places where a live actor will stage themselves, maybe like a town crier that is warning guests entering that monsters are on the loose in the land. I think that would be neat. We can see in this photo that the town well has also been completed. This well, according to some previous content from Universal, will have a fog that rises out from it, which is going to just be so neat and add a haze to this whole area. In this shot, we can also see Das Steakhouse looks to be complete and has its signage installed. Once again though, can we take a moment? Just the scenic facade theming on all these buildings is so freaking beautiful. Kudos to the entire Universal creative teams on this. Now pulling out a little, we can also see just how much of the final trees and foliage is in place, and they did a really great job getting trees and plants that don't look too vibrant and alive. They really fit the vibe and complement the buildings nicely. And of course, we have to look at Frankenstein's Manor, where the land's main attraction, Monsters Unchained, will be located, complete with its electric coils at the top, which have actually been testing late at night recently. And thanks to Bio again, he was able to get some footage of this, and man, does it look so cool. I can't wait to hear the sound effects that will accompany this and probably pulse throughout the whole land. This photo gives a great look at some of the plants added to the moat in front of the manor. I do wish there was some running water through here, but I guess this kinda adds more to the dead and desolate nature of this land. Here we see the finished extended exterior queue, and let's take a closer look at just how detailed the work on the manor is. I love just how many vines and roots they have trying to take over the building. And another thing that really adds to the foreboding nature of the building is the jagged rocks that line the wall on the bridge that leads up to the building. Over at the Curse of the Werewolf attraction, plenty of trees and plants have been added, and it is looking great. I'm excited to see these grow in over the years and really make it feel like you are riding through a forest. The front marquee and queue entrance have also been completed. And finally, we come to one of the coolest parts of this update, and probably why a lot of you are watching, and that is the Windmill. Burning Blade Tavern will be a place where you can grab a drink and some small bites, but the best part of it is on the outside. The building holds a windmill on top, and occasionally this will burst into flames, and it looks a little something like this. Just so freaking neat. It looks so good, and it is really going to be a highlight of this land, or even the park. And when this happens, it is said there will be a little show with actors outside of it that will lead up to the blades catching on fire. I mean, come on, it is just so neat. Well, there you have it. It's looking pretty far along, right? I honestly think we are like 2 months out from possibly getting team member previews of the park, and I gotta be honest, it's gonna be hard to stay away from spoilers all the way until May 22nd, when I will be there for the grand opening. But let me know in the comments what part of today's update got you most excited for Epic Universe. That windmill, I think, is really the one that stands out to me, but I want to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this video or enjoy anything about Orlando theme parks, please take a second and hit subscribe so that you can see my videos pop up in your feed. That's gonna do it for this one. Thank you all so much for taking some time out of your day to watch, and I'll catch you in the next one. Remember to stay golden.